Hey y'all, happy spring! I swear it is really, really spring right now. It's the middle of April and it is snowing outside, but I swear it's spring. So we're gonna paint these spring flowers. If you think that there shouldn't be snow in April, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. If you're one of those skiers or snowmobilers, people who think that there should just always be snow, you can hit that thumbs down button twice. The rest of us are going to get started celebrating spring because we know it's coming. We know it's going to happen. And we're going to paint some spring flowers. Welcome to Creatively Uncorked. I'm Shanna, and I will be your artist for some lovely spring flowers today. We have a new spring flowers bundle that just came out. I'll tell you about that at the end, or check the link below. And we're just going to go ahead and paint us a couple of fun spring flowers. So I'm going to paint some of these in both watercolor and acrylic. So then you can decide whichever you like best. Some of my favorite flowers are going to be the little button flowers. And let's see, let's do those little button flowers. So I'm going to take, and these would be kind of like cherry blossoms, apple blossoms, that sort of thing. And which would be mostly white, come to think of it, but I want a little bit of color in there, so I'm going to make mine kind of a pinkish white. I'm using just a filbert brush. Take a little yellow, little red for more of a pinkish color. And now the trick with these is pull in from the center, like, so you're putting your brush down, pull in, put the brush down, pull in, put the brush down, pull in, oops, store your brush. Last one. Okay, so now there's your basic flower. If you want to brighten up a few edges, you can just pick up some white and just kind of cover a few of those petals one more time. And maybe you want some color in the center, maybe some, probably red, right? And just, what I did was I put a little dot of red on the back of the handle there. And there we go. So there is one method of making flowers. Ooh, then there's the cinnamon bun. And these are really fun too. So like if you're going to paint a rose, perhaps this is a really good way to do this. So again, we'll just stick to the same kind of colors here since I already have those. We'll go with the darker colors first. So we'll go with kind of a darker orange. And we'll go ahead and swirl, swirl, swirl. This is going to be a cinnamon bun swirl. Okay, so there is the darker colors of my rose. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some lighter colors in layers on this. I do have some kind of thick paint there, so it might take a minute. Which is fine because, let's see, I'll just go ahead and take some white. And there we go. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting down the edge of this brush. I'm filling both sides with paint, pressing down on the canvas, and then twisting and lifting off in cinnamon bun fashion. Okay, and it's because the paint is wet, it's going to pick up the paint under it. Don't worry about that. Just make a few swipes, wipe the paint off of your brush onto your paper towel, pick up some new white, and give her another little swishy swirl. So this could be like a carnation maybe, maybe not. Nah, maybe it's more, I think it's still more rosy. Okay, that can work if you want some darker areas, which I'm not sure I do, but you know what? I'll try it anyway and then decide. So I just want some darker shadows in here. So I mixed up an orange, since it's an orange flower anyway, but without white. Okay, so I'm just kind of swiping in between the highlights, a little more shadowy areas there. See, not too tough, not too hard at all. So there's a nice, very simple rose. What's your favorite flower? Maybe a daisy? Daisies are fun. Let's try a different method for a daisy. So I have let's check some brushes here. So I have just this little, and this is a bristle brush, an old ratty. I swear this thing is older than me. Well, it would be, except I remember buying it. So I guess it's not quite that old. Anyway, let's try the center of the flower, which... What color is the center of a daisy? Daisy is going to be kind of like a brownish color. And we don't have brown. We have red, we have yellow, and we have blue. So the good news is, guess what happens when you mix all three of those? Yep, you get brown. The actual formula that I'd like to give people for that is a lot of yellow, a little bit of red, and a tiny dot of blue, and that's going to get you about the closest ratio, that we'll call it, that you can use for a brown. So I'm just gonna dot 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 dot. Okay, wiping that paint off of the brush, and maybe I'll take a little bit of white. I'll mush that on the plate. This is a bristle brush, so it makes nice texture and it frays out easily, so I'll add some texture. This is the center of my daisy now. Fabulous. Okay, brush in the water. Let's move on. Here is another filbert brush. It's exactly the same as a filbert brush that I had been using, but slightly smaller and doesn't have paint in it. So dunk that in the water. I'm gonna pick up some mostly white paint. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take some of this turquoise, scribble it in the background, and this is just because I want some background texture. White doesn't show up on white without a background, so I'm going to make this background just a little darker. And this is not any kind of fancy canvas, any kind of watercolor paper that I'm using. This is just a sketchbook, and so all I'm doing is just painting right directly on the sketchbook, because I want this to be no pressure, right? No pressure painting spring flowers. Okay, so now let's get onto those flowers. I'm gonna take a little bit of yellow and go around. Again, this is just the background. This is going to be behind my flower petals. Okay, I just want to have some color behind there. And since I'm painting on just a sketchbook paper, it dries very quickly, much more quickly than if this was on canvas. All right, now I'm picking up that white. Let's go white. So what I'm doing is pressing the edge of the brush down, lifting off. Press down, lift off. Okay, just keep doing that. We're going to set up our back row of petals first. And I'm sure you've seen daisies before. They end up being pretty similar. However, they're kind of pointing, the petals are going to be pointing different directions, a little bit random. All right, starting to overlap. And as I overlap and start adding on thicker layers of paint, it should become a little more opaque and show less color through it. So this is going to differentiate the foreground petals, the background petals. Just going to add a couple of layers here. And that's not terrible, but I think I'd like to try another daisy. Let's try another daisy. Before I do that though, I'll go back to the center of this one and just tap back into existence. Okay, so now we have a daisy with a dark center and some bright white petals. We have a nice little rose. We have a little, let's call it an apple blossom. How about a tulip? So for a tulip, I'll use a different kind of brush yet. I'll use a flat brush, and this is going to be a pretty small tulip. Sticking with my color scheme here, I've got a little bit of orange happening. I'm mixing in some white, because white is my opaque color. And I think this part I want a little bit darker. So I'm darkening that with some turquoise and some red, which actually ends up being a little more purple. All right, so this is going to be the background, or the back petals. So I've got a couple of different petals. You can either put the flat side down and pull it down, or you can put the edge down and pull it down. So you just want to make sure that your petals all connect to the stem. And we can put the stem in if you want. Just using some turquoise and some yellow to get a nice bright green. And then adding a little bit of blue on the other side. So I've got bright green, dark green. I turned dark green because of that blue. Pick up a little more dark green on one side, a little more light green on the other side. And so this time I'm putting the brush straight down onto the paper, pressing firmly, and then lifting up. I think that needs a little more water. We'll do that one more time. Okay, so we have some nice little petals there for our nice little tulip. Now we only have some of the back petals on that tulip, so we'll go ahead and add our front petals. So again, I'm just going to go with like a nice orange color here. Teeny tiny dot of white this time. No turquoise. A little more white, I think, a little more opaque. There we go. So now we can see foreground, background. And because those tulip petals can get really shiny, we'll just add some bright little highlights in there. What do you think? Look like a tulip to you? Fantastic. All right, let's move on to watercolor. So different brushes now. I'll be using my watercolor brushes instead of the acrylic brushes. All right, we'll kind of do a similar deal here. So I'll start out up here with my apple blossom. And that's a little too orange, I think. Let's go with some pink. Ooh. So the watercolor bristles, you can see, are going to be a lot more flexible. Maybe a little purple. Let's give it a little color. So when you press down and lift off, press down and lift off, you're going to see a much more significant difference. There we are. So this is already a little more fun, a little more playful. You can just drop in a little bit of color here and there. So if you want it to be a little more pink, maybe a little more orange. Watercolor is pretty fun. Maybe a touch of, do we want red? Do a red in the center there, a couple of dots of red in the center. Okay, so it's got a little more life already. Let's try that cinnamon bun. All right, so we're gonna start with the lightest color, because with watercolor it's a little bit different. You start light to dark. So I'll do my cinnamon buns. Okay, and then I'll come back with a dark. Okay, and then I'll come back with a shadow color. Cool it down a bit. And I think maybe a nice bright yellow, huh? What do you think? Something to brighten that back up again. You know, we could even do some petals coming off of that, like maybe some green leaves, some green stems. So with watercolor, well, with any kind of paint, I kind of prefer to mix the greens over taking them out of the palette like this. You just get kind of a better variety of greens. But let's work with what we've got. Okay, same thing. I'm going to press down, lift off. Let's see what we can do about a darker green. There we are. Let's pick up another color. That's nice. Let's do this color. Now that is much, much more bold than the flower itself. Well, we got a little bit of green around that rose there. How about a tulip? Let's see if I have a flat watercolor brush. Flat watercolor brushes are not my favorite. I prefer rounds. You know, now that this color is starting to dry, see if we can't drop some red in there. Reddy red, okay. Yeah, I think I like that richer color better. All right, so now we have, yeah, I guess I don't have a flat, so I'm just gonna go ahead with what I do have, and I can make a tulip with this. Tulip, you just gotta make sure you have the round cup shape for starters. That's gonna be the most important. And in this case, I'm going to put some darker color on the top because it's gonna be the shadow. I might have some more yellow coming out in the front, where the highlight areas are going to be. Go back to that greens again, and so if this color bleeds, it's fine. Okay, so tulips, super simple. I'd like to redo this apple blossom because I painted a lot of apple blossoms and I think I can do better. So again, outside to the inside, outside to the inside. Put another petal right there. We're going to run out of space. And so we get some wiggly little, let's see, petals there. And we'll put that dot of red in the center. Maybe? They're usually white or really light pink, which is hard to do on white paper, so we're going to go with it. We're just going to pretend that there was a darker color around it, and that would make it pop. So this one, I think I can do it. Let's try it. I'll just take some sort of a darker color here. Well, it doesn't have to be quite so dense, I guess. Also, this isn't watercolor paper. This is just a sketchbook. So it's not meant for any of this. I'm going to try some purple. Green all by itself, kind of boring. Green and purple, on the other hand, way more exciting. There's a little bit of darker color in there, and maybe you can just like make it look like maybe some of those petals are a little thinner. You're seeing some of that color through. A little more challenging on this paper because it doesn't behave like watercolor paper, but that's okay. The whole point is to loosen up and paint some friendly loose flowers. So the thing about a daisy, if I wanted to add a daisy in here, I've got the whole light versus dark issue. So on a daisy, I would have to entirely paint around it. So here's the daisy stem. Okay, daisy stem, daisy bottom. Okay, and then let's go with like blue sky around the daisy. So this would be more negative painting. So we have to just like imagine that those petals are there and paint around them. Get a little more color in there. Don't be afraid to change up the color with watercolor. In fact, you should. If this was the same boring green all the way around, it wouldn't be much to look at, would it? All right, so there's Daisy watercolor style. A little bit different angle on the Daisy, but that's okay. All right, just a quick review. We've got some nice little spring flowers here, and these were just some super quick, basic overviews of the flowers that we're going to be painting in this spring flower video tutorial bundle. So this is one that you can find at memberships.creativelyuncorked.com, and this is one of our bundles. Right now it's on the main page. I'll put a link below directly to it, but this is what we have right now. We have a lot of different techniques that, yes, we cover a lot more thoroughly. So you can see here's the cinnamon bun, here are some tulips. They've got a lot more detail, a nice big fat daisy, and there's some of those little star flowers, apple blossoms, almond blossoms they're called here. We go through a number of different techniques on this blue vase painting. Poppies. So yeah, I'll show you where you can get this. You can go ahead and order that now. It's available for you. Take a look at that. Let me know if you like it. Join the membership if you like. And have an awesome day. Think spring. I'll see you next week.